Busch Gardens Tampa is one amazing park. If you haven't been before, you have to go. Everything is incredible, from the food to the rides to the shows to the animals. Everything is top notch here. That's why this is a bucket list park for many coaster enthusiasts across the country. One thing that I really like about this park is that they are dedicated to adding new and improved rides almost every year. What that leads to is a fan base who is absolutely spoiled with new attractions all the time, so they are constantly wanting more. So in this video, we are going to talk about what Busch Gardens Tampa Bay could possibly be adding next year in 2025. I know their brand new coaster hasn't even opened yet, but the floodgates are already open for predictions. I make a video like this every year, so this is what Busch Gardens Tampa Bay could be adding next year for 2025. I make one of these videos every year. Last year, I accurately predicted that they were going to add some type of B&M family coaster. My gut was saying last year they were going to add a B&M family wing coaster, something like Mandrill Mayhem, but ultimately they decided to go with a suspended coaster, a very smart and very interesting choice. You can clearly tell who Busch Gardens is trying to market to here. They are trying to go after that family demographic. They recently removed their Wild Mouse to make room for this, and this is definitely an improvement. The Wild Mouse did get a lot of rides by families. Kids wanted to ride it with their parents, so this is going to be very similar. But this also branches into the family thrill category, which I'm very excited about, something that the Wild Mouse did not. Another thing you will notice around the park is that they are constantly improving their just general vibe. They recently redid the signage for the Sky Ride, and now they opened that up again, so that creates a brand new thing for families to do since it was closed. They redid their kangaroo exhibit, and now they are completely redoing their ice skating show. Just major enhancements. So this leads me to believe that the 2025/2026 edition will be in two parts. A major enhancement and a new thrilling coaster. Let me explain. Let's start off by finding where this new addition is possibly going to go. Right now, there are already work walls up near the Kumba area of the park in the Jungala section. This part definitely needs a refresh. This section isn't exactly the most updated, and I think completely refreshing this area with a new addition would do wonders for the backside of the park. So my first official prediction is the Jungala section of Busch Gardens Tampa is going to be receiving a refresh next year. Now we don't know how much this is going to entail. Maybe they're just going to refresh it and then add an attraction the following year, or maybe they're adding an attraction and giving it a refresh. But I think definitely this area needs it, and knowing Busch Gardens, they're probably going to do this either this year or the next. If they are refreshing this area, it would make sense for them to add a new coaster, but what is it going to be? Is it finally going to be that rumored Giga coaster, or maybe something else? If we have to guess the manufacturer, it is going to be B&M. I can pretty much say if I was going to make a gamble, it would be that their new edition is going to be by B&M. We look at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, they are adding Phoenix Rising, which is a B&M family suspended coaster. We look at SeaWorld Orlando, they just added Pipeline, and now they are adding Penguin Trek. 2 more B&Ms. All 3 of these coasters are completely different from one another. They are all prototype or prototype-esque rides. So Busch Gardens Tampa would definitely be able to take a risk if necessary, or they could go for one of B&M's tried and true coaster designs. The first coaster that everyone talks about when they talk about B&M and Busch Gardens Tampa is that Giga coaster. This has been talked about so much about the park possibly being a contender to receive a B&M Giga or a Hyper. Now, I do think this would be a great fit at the park, and I do think it is decently plausible. SeaWorld Entertainment does not mind spending large amounts of money on investments as long as they can get it back. This is why they spent money on Iron Gwazi, Pantheon, Emperor, all these big attractions, and a Giga could definitely work out. However, there are a few main issues with this. Number one is the space. Busch Gardens does have space for the Giga coaster, but they would have to move a few things around. In other words, to be ready by 2025, we would have already seen a lot more construction by now. Unless the park is being extra sneaky. Secondly, due to FAA regulations, any structure over 200 feet is going to need that red light on top. And what that means is they usually have to file permits for that quite early. We would have already seen something if it's set in stone already, but maybe it's not. Maybe they are actively considering it at the moment. We have seen site markers pop up every now and then. Now, it's a huge misconception that they can't build over 200 feet. They can. It just requires a little bit more paperwork and some extra regulation. It's not that difficult, but we probably would have seen signs for it already unless they're planning on 2026. Something a lot of people fail to realize is just how expensive Giga coasters really are. This could be over $30 million. It could be that expensive. This isn't something that they just decide to do one year. So if they are going to add a Giga in 2025, 2026, or 2027, they would have had to be planning it for quite a while, just in terms of budgeting. Now, before I give you my final thoughts on the Giga Coaster and tell you what my prediction is for 2025/2026, I want to talk about a couple other rumors that I've been hearing. Number one is a Pantheon-style Intamin multi-launch coaster. I don't think this is very likely at all. We have Velocicoaster right down the road, maybe an hour and a half away, and I don't see them working with Intamin too much. They worked with Intamin for smaller projects, but since Pantheon had a little bit of issues, I'm not really sure that they're going to do a huge investment like that. And plus, Velocicoaster being right there is a big deal. A Mock Rides hypercoaster would be pretty cool, but we have zero evidence for this. SeaWorld Entertainment hasn't really worked with Mock Rides since Cobra's Curse, so I don't think that's very likely at all. As for something by Vekoma, we have yet again the same thing. They haven't worked with them in a while, and I don't really see it happening. Everyone always throws around wooden coasters. We would love to see one of those in Florida. However, the Florida heat doesn't do amazing with the wooden track. That's why the whole Gwazi thing happened in the first place, which is kind of a good thing because we have awesome iron Gwazi, but I don't think they would want to take the chance with the GCI or something. The only exception would be if they pulled a Texas Stingray. I'm talking about that GCI hybrid coaster having the steel supports and the wooden tracks. So yes, the park would technically have two hybrid coasters, but this would be the only way that they could add a wooden coaster. And having this in the Jungala section of the park would be pretty cool. However, I do think there is a slightly better option. I think what can bring in more crowds is a B&M Hyper or a B&M Giga. So that is going to be my prediction of what they are going to quote unquote eventually add in this area. But what about 2025? Well, in 2025, I think it is safe to say that they are going to give the Jungala section of the park a facelift. They're going to completely redo this section, improving the theming and making it look just a lot nicer. They're going to remove some of the structures that aren't in use anymore and possibly add some new rides. I'm talking about possible flat rides from Zamperla. Zamperla has a lot of flat rides that are super reliable and are very cheap. So we could definitely see a Nebula here, we could see an air race, or maybe even a Larson flying scooter. We just don't know yet, but I definitely think they need at least one more family flat ride just to round out the park's layout. So all of this would pave the way for in 2026 to add a Giga or a Hyper coaster. I'm talking about that classic B&M Hyper or Giga with all that airtime. Something like Fury 325 or Orion would work perfectly at this park, and here's why. The only gap in the park's lineup right now is a thrill coaster that is based on floater airtime. If you think about it right now, all of their thrill coasters are based on some type of inversion, whether you have Kumba, Montu, Iron Gwazi. Even Cheetah Hunt has an inversion thrown right in the middle. They need something dedicated to floater airtime, and that is where the Giga or the Hyper coaster will come into play. This ride would instantly be a guest favorite. And here's the thing. It wouldn't even have to be a B&M Giga. A Hyper would work just as well. However, knowing Busch Gardens, I do think they would at least highly consider a Giga coaster here, just for the record and for it to be easily marketable. So that is what I think is coming in the future. In 2025, we are going to be seeing a general retheme of the Jungala section, possibly along with a new flat ride. And then in 2026, we are going to be seeing that B&M Hyper or that B&M Giga coaster finally come to the park, and I'm very excited for it. Now, just a reminder, these are just predictions, but I think they have a decent chance of actually happening. But I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what possible rides you think are going to be added to Busch Gardens Tampa Bay over the next couple of years. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Coaster Josh signing out.